Okay, let's try one of these hard equations. That's a big, long log equation. Base 5 equal 2 logs added together equal to some number. And they're really tricky. There's 3 things to remember in this one problem. So step 1, we're going to combine the 2 logs into 1 log using property number 1 of logarithms. As long as they're the same base, if you're adding logs, it's the same as having 1 log and multiplying the 2 things together. So this is the same as multiplying 2x times x minus 3 and log base 5 of just those 2 things multiplied together. So that's property number 1 of logarithms. So step 1, trick 1, you take the 2 logs and combine them into 1 using either property number 1 where they're multiplied or property number 2 where they're divided. So if it's minus, the 2 things will be divided instead of multiplied. Okay, trick number 2 is because it's a log and the base is 5, logarithms are exponents. So that means this base can go over here and the logarithm is going to be the exponent of that base. So this logarithm just goes down and becomes the exponent of that base. And 5 to the 3rd power, you can check this on your calculator, is going to be 125. So 5 times 5 is 25, times another 5 is going to be 125. So that's going to equal 2x times x minus 3. Now we're going to distribute here. So I'm going to get 2x squared minus 6x. And then I'm going to bring the 125 over, so make it minus 125. Remember, when numbers cross the equal sign, when terms cross the equal sign, they change sign. So positive 125 over here, negative 125 over here. The only thing left over on this side is 0. So what we have is a quadratic equation equal to 0, and we can solve it by factoring, or we can solve it with the quadratic formula, or completing the square. So to see if it factors, one little trick we can use is we can find what b squared minus 4ac equals. And if that's a number that has a square root, then we know it factors. If it's a number that doesn't have a square root, then we know it doesn't factor. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to take 36, square it. Notice I didn't put the negative on there because you don't, when you square it, it's going to become positive. I guess I don't need to put the 36. Let me just call it 6 squared minus 4 times 2 times 125, and it's going to be negative 125. Okay, so I do this on my calculator. 6 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 125. Don't hit equals in there anywhere. Just put the whole thing in the way it is and then push equals. And that's 1,036. Now, I don't think that has a square root. Let me check. I'll take the square root and see. So square root of 1,036 is 32.18, blah, 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 blah. So no even square root, so we know it does not factor. All right, so let's do the quadratic formula. I'm going to save that 32 for a minute, and I'm going to use it in a second. So if this is a quadratic formula, it's equal to the quadratic formula is going to be negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. We already know what that is. And we're going to divide that by 2a. So that's going to be negative of negative 6, which is going to be positive 6. 2 times a is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. Then plus or minus the square root of 1,036. And we're going to divide that by 2 times 2, which is 4. So I took the square root of 1,036, and it's 32. I'm going to divide it by 4. I'm going to put it in memory, so I'll have it exactly. So I don't, I won't have to round here at all. There should be no rounding error at all. So I know that this part here, the plus or minus, is going to be 8.05 if I round it to 3 digits. 6 divided by 4 I know is 1.5. So x is going to be 1.5 plus or minus 8.05. If we were drawing a parabola, the 1.5, remember, would be the axis of symmetry. So it's always nice to know. This is always the axis of symmetry. That negative b over 2a is always the axis of symmetry. So I'm going to get 2 answers here. Let me write them down. I'm going to put in 1.5, recall a, and I'm going to store that in b. and that is 12.07. No, there's something wrong with that, isn't there? Yeah, multiplied instead of added. Let me try it again. 1.5 plus, recall A, and I'm going to store it in B. 9.55. 9.55. So you always want to look at your calculator and make sure it's doing what you thought it was doing. I thought I added it, but I put it next to each other and it didn't take the plus, or I didn't push it, so it multiplied it. And then I'm going to subtract 1.5 minus that. 1.5 minus recall A. I'll put that in memory too. And that's negative 6.5. And I suspect that, because I'm doing log of 2 times x, when I multiply 2 times a negative number, it's going to be negative. So I think I'm going to be taking the log of a negative number, and of course it won't do that. So I can cross that out. I know that's not going to be a solution because I can't take a log. You can never take a log of a negative number. Negative number or logarithms can give you negative numbers, but you can never take the log of a negative number. So 9.55 is my guess for an answer. So let me put that in the calculator and check it. I've got it stored in B, so it'll be real easy for me to get out to check. So I go back to the original equation, log of 2 times 9.55. And then because it's base 5, I can use the change of base formula and say it'll be log of 2 times that divided by log of 5. So you should know the change of base formula. If I want to know log base 5 of some number, I take the log of the number and divide it by log of the base. And I'm going to figure out what that is. I'm going to fill that in right here. So I go log, and you can use ln or log. I'm using log here. Parentheses 2 and then times 9.55. 9.55 I stored in B. And then I'm going to divide by log of 5. So when I do that, I get 1.83. So this thing here is 1.83. Now I'm going to do the other term, log term. So it's log base 5 of x minus 3. So that's going to be 9.55 minus 3. And I'm going to type that in as log of 9.55 minus 3 divided by log of 5. So change of base formula, all you have to do is do the log of the number divided by the log of the base. So it's the log of the number divided by the log of the base. So we're going to see what that equals. So log, and again, you can use ln or log. I'm using log here. Parentheses, recall B. So my 9.55 is stored in B. Minus 3. Close that parentheses. Divide by log of 5. And that turns out to be 1.17. 1.17. So I'm going to add those two things together. 1.17, 1.83, and 3 and 7 is 0. I carry a 1. 1 and 8 and 1 is 10. I carry a 1 again. 1 and 1 and 1 is 3. So these two numbers do add up to 3, and I get a good check for my problem. The negative, like I said before, if I put negative in there, let me show you. If I take log of 2 times that negative, I'll just type it in, negative 6.55. Calculator tells me math error because it cannot take a log of a negative number, ever, ever, ever. No base, no log. You can't take logs of negative numbers. All right, hard problem. Put it on your cheat sheet, practice it.